Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Knuckles the Echidna here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic & Knuckles for the Sega Mega Drive / Sega Genesis, or simply call it Sonic & Knuckles standalone version, and while doing so is about the fact that we still ended up in Sonic's story, so either way. So last time, we've essentially did manage to traverse into not one, but 3 zones, which appears to be Mushroom Hill Zone, alongside with Flying Battery Zone, and finally Sandopolis Zone. And meanwhile though, during the forms within not only Mushroom Hill Zone, but alongside with the forms of Flying Battery Zone as well, we did indeed manage able to once again collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds, which means about the fact that we can once again turn into Super Sonic, and you probably named the idea. So today for this video, if you couldn't tell already, we're about to able to wrap things up everything for Sonic's story before we move on to the second playthrough in Sonic & Knuckles, and that's what appears to be Knuckles' story. And that, relatively speaking, was about the fact that we're going to be going into the next zone, which appears to be Lava Reef Zone, and possibly other zones coming up, which appears to be Hidden Power Zone, Sky Century Zone, Death Egg Zone, and finally Doomsday Zone, assuming of course if you do able to actually unlock the ability to turn into Super Sonic, that is. So, but anyways though, and as far as you probably already know about the fact that Lava Reef Zone is also very iconic as well, and relatively speaking though, that particular zone will make its comeback for the likes of Sonic Mania. So as a result though, yeah, no wonder why about the fact that a lot of people seem to really despise Sandopolis Zone for only one particular aspect, which appears to be on Act 2 specifically though, but that's just the way of how opinions are related though for certain players out there. So anyways though, and as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that I believe we're now on to the halfway point in terms of Sonic's story anyway, in Sonic & Knuckles, because after all though, we still got a couple of zones left, and generally speaking I was about the fact that, well, I'm sure it's still possible we can able to actually grind as many of those extra lives as we could. Mind you, nowhere near as much as the forms of how it does it in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 standalone version, in addition to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because obviously though we able to have, you know, the save feature, as well as the forms of saving up for specific continues, during the forms of the special stages and all that stuff though. So, although regardless of everything else though, is about the fact that, you know, we've already done with every single special stages, as specifically for Sonic anyway, but as far as Knuckles' playthrough is concerned, or myself anyway, that can wait and join at some point until next week. So anyways though, yeah, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date of course here is the 14th of November today, in some cases in 2024 today, and generally speaking, did you guys know about the fact that the Sonic Boom TV series, specifically the good Sonic Boom related thing, has recently became 10 years old, which I surprisingly forgot to comment on back in Journey Forms of on Tuesday and stuff like that, because relatively speaking, I was about the fact that ever since and around 2 days ago, I've somehow managed able to give my rewatch of Deadpool and Wolverine for the likes of Disney Plus version, but I still managed able to enjoy the film despite its issues and stuff like that, which I'm probably not going to get into further details on that, because obviously though, that film is the most recent Marvel film at the time, so generally speaking though, that's as far as I can usually try to say about this, I guess. So, but I digress though. So yeah, while looking back in Journey Forms of Sonic Boom, the TV series, as a matter of fact, I still find it to be pretty good. Well, mind you about the fact I'm pretty much more into the forms of other Sonic shows at that point, which appears to be Sonic Prime, alongside with the forms of maybe Sonic X for the sake of the forms of nostalgia purposes for the actual story recaps of not only Sonic Adventure 1, but as well as Sonic Adventure 2. Well, the only exception being is Sonic Heroes for whatever reason. Well, mind you, it's probably because no matter what though, is about the fact that, well, it's hard for me to explain, you know. But anyways though, here we go with the next mini boss right here, which does feature this ginormous hand, and basically though, just keep on jumping onto it for about a few times or so, and especially noticeable if you manage to use Supersonic or Hypersonic, if you manage able to experience, you know, Sonic 3 and Knuckles combined, then this boss fight is a total pushover, especially concerning for the fact that after all, we beat in the forms of the first act in under 4 minutes. Well, it might be still felt a bit lengthy sometimes, but until whenever we get onto Act 2, on the other hand, specifically in Sonic's playthrough anyway, basically though, is about the fact that I still really love the transition about the fact that at one point in Act 1 that we ended up in this little red lava kind of environment to it. So here we are now onto the forms of a blue background environment, so we can definitely know about the forms of the transition coming up for the sake of the forms of the actual progression goes. Now, as far as I'm aware, you probably already know, if you do play as Knuckles in Journey forms in this stage, basically though, we can able to actually go into a different exit. So, but then again, we'll probably save that particular topic if we get onto Knuckles' playthrough in Sonic and Knuckles, basically. So, either way though, there's also worth noting for as well, is about the fact that I'm pretty sure that until next week for some time, about the fact that, did you guys know until next week, that Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo Wii U is about to be celebrating its 10th anniversary at some point until next week, which I'm sure that will be the case, specifically if you ever lived in North America and all that stuff, because it wasn't until around a couple of days later, for specifically though, 7 days later for the UK version, and as far as I'm aware, if I could recall correctly, the Japanese version will not receive it until, I would say on December or something. Well, mind you, it has been about quite a few days ago since I actually have last played Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U, mainly because at this point in time, I did manage able to accomplish some achievements anyway so far. Well, mind you, that I'm probably not gonna 100% everything in the game, mind you, but that's because I've heard about the fact that it will be the worst games I've ever experienced if you're going for a completion, which as a result though, well, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy the game though, but we'll save that particular topic until next week. So anyway though, also about the fact that I believe that as far as what me and Sonic do remember back in the day in 2014, that I remember about the fact that we did somehow indeed manage able to receive ourselves the very first iPhone we've ever got back in 2014, despite it was second-hand, and on top of all that stuff, there was actually a downgraded phone, which appears to be iPhone 5, that as far as I'm aware, that was the first iPhone we've ever gotten back in the day, even though despite the fact it's a little bit outdated now, mainly because of not only for its firmware software update, but as well as from that though, is about the fact that me and Sonic do remember that we have to deal with the forms of the worst battery life that we have to put up with. But it wasn't until in 2017 roll around that basically though we've somehow managed to fix the forms of this battery life problem. So I'm guessing it's more specifically though trying to get the battery replaced, and that's pretty much about it basically. So either way though, so I digress. So, and also as far as I'm aware is about the fact that enduring new forms have been Lava Reef Zone, if you couldn't tell. Basically though, the Flame Shield will be your best friend indeed, even if you really don't want to get hit so many times by not only certain lava, but as well as the forms of flamethrowers, as far as you probably already noticed at this point. Seriously though, I still really love the elemental shields, and not only in this game, but alongside with Sonic 3 and Sonic Generations as far as the skills, and on top of that with Sonic Mania as well. I'm not entirely sure about the forms of Sonic Superstars though, because mind you, it has been about quite a few months ago since I actually have last played Sonic Superstars, since I did somehow manage to able to complete that game on the Switch version, just because I was wanted able to practice that game up before we dive into the actual Sonic Superstars game at some point and during at some point until 2025. So anyways though, also as far as I'm aware, did you guys know also about the fact that it's been about entirely a year ago since when Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC has officially ended, since in about a year ago, thanks to the forms of the existence of Wave 6. So naturally speaking though, geez, I can't even believe it's been about a year ago since we did somehow receive not only Pauline, but alongside with the forms of Diddy Kong, Funky Kong, and out of nowhere Peachette as playable characters in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But as well as from that though, the track selection is really awesome. At least while looking back on it though, after a year ago, like we somehow got, you know, Wii Rainbow Road from Mario Kart Wii, as well as Bowser Castle 3 from Super Mario Kart, Rosalina's Ice World, which while looking back on it though, it is very unexpected that as a result though, yeah, Rosalina's Ice World was actually based off of Mario Kart 7, and on top of all that stuff though, with the final city courses and stuff like that, and one in Rome from Italy, and then the other one which appears to be Madrid from the likes of the forms of in Spain. And also, relatively speaking, I honestly still remember that we actually got ourselves a really good track selection from Mario Kart Double Dash Choice, which appears to be DK Mountain, and same applies with the forms of other tracks here and there as well. Like, for instance, though, I still even found it to be very unbelievable that Daisy Circuit did somehow made it. And finally, most notably, though, you know, one of those tracks originated from Mario Kart Tour, and that's pretty much as far as we can able to say about this, I guess. So, and by the way, something's worth noting for, yeah, there's no way we can able to actually get into this bonus area or the bonus stage on that checkpoint, because as you can tell, that about the fact that if you think that Act 2 of Lava Reef Zone will be done, well, we still got the boss fight to take care of. So generally speaking, yeah, no wonder why about the fact that this stage can be felt a bit lengthy sometimes. But I will admit, though, right away, this boss fight, out of all the actual boss fights in the entire classic Sonic games in the past decade, basically, though, this boss is not that very great. Not only because it's very ridiculously long, but it's also about the fact that the hit point count is also ridiculously high. And the actual method to try to deal with the damage to Eggman right here is that we need to let him go and let these bombs be able to actually come straight towards him. And it's especially noticeable concerning for the fact that at one point he obviously goes into either left side or the right side. And something's worth noting for as well, if you do manage to use the flame shield, you'll become invincible for this entire battle, unless if you're trying to accidentally trigger supersonic transformation or hypersonic if you manage to able to play Sonic 3 and Knuckles combined together. So, I digress. So, and I'm still genuinely surprised about the fact that, again, while looking back on Sonic Boom, the TV series for the sake of time, that it still managed able to receive quite well in the past. Like, for instance, though, it still managed able to receive a grand total of 2 seasons and making a grand total of 104 episodes. So, yeah, it's actually not doing too bad, all things considered, as far as this is concerned. And, also, no matter what, though, is about the fact I do remember back then, they somehow managed able to bring up the forms of not only Shadow the Hedgehog, but as well as the forms of Metal Sonic as well. And it's also worth noting for is about the fact that obviously, though, not only does Sonic Boom TV series did officially became 10 years old, but it's also about the fact that Styx the Badger, the new character at the time, that she was now basically exists since 10 years ago. And generally speaking, though, she becomes a little bit more relevant in the other Sonic games. Specifically, though, the Sonic spin-off games, ranging from Sonic Runners and Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, which I'm still very surprised that she never makes its return for the sake of the forms of Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. And speaking of which, though, is about the fact that I also found this to be very unbelievable that Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 has officially became 5 years old since 2019. And while looking back on it, though, I found it's good, but nowhere near as like my favorite compared to the forms of how it does it in not only for Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games, but alongside with the forms of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, specifically in Vancouver 2010. So yeah, that's just for my opinions for the sake of time. So anyways, though, again, I do apologize for my commentary, it's a little bit iffy at some point or another. Well, that's just mainly because at this point in time, that I don't think it's possible we can able to actually hear about game announcements or game updates for the time being specifically until next month, that we're able to actually hear more about it, but thanks to the forms of the Game Awards that's about to be coming up. So anyways, let's go and deal with Knuckles here, and obviously, though, we are very unbeatable thanks to the forms of Supersonic Transformation, and that's pretty much about it in Hidden Palace Zone. So basically, though, this level is not too shabby. There's only like one boss fight in particular, which appears to be we face up against with Knuckles, but either way, it's also very weird to see there are no powered up Super Emeralds or anything else like that, unlike the complete Sonic 3, for the sake of, you know, Sonic 3 and Knuckles combined, and it may look like Dr. Eggman is to somehow got the Master Emerald, and it's up to us to stop him from good. And generally speaking, thankfully though, Knuckles did somehow reformed himself, and thanks to the forms of this particular, well, friendship kind of thing, Knuckles is now joining in our side. So whilst unlike the forms of how it does in Sonic 3 alone, basically though is about the fact that he becomes the actual Sonic's rival during that time. So anyway, now let's get into the forms of the coolest zone in the entire game, which appears to be Sky Century Zone. And basically though, if you've followed through our Let's Plays before on one hand, basically though, Sky Century Zone is not only without a doubt is yet another iconic levels in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but it's also about the fact that this particular level will make a return from the likes of Sonic Generations in the classic era. Specifically though, the console version for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC, Steam, and every nowadays with PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X/S, even Nintendo Switch nowadays, all thanks to the forms of the existence of Sonic X Shadow Generations. So yeah, that's actually super awesome and everything. So, and also straight to the point though is about the fact that we might able to make our way to specific parts of the level, where basically though is about the fact I believe there might be not one but 3 bosses that we need to take care of. So potentially speaking though is about the fact that hopefully we'll be able to make our way for specific parts of the level. So man, I still really love this music, by the way, especially concerning for the fact I could imagine about the fact that if I managed to hear the remix version of the Forms of Sky Century theme, obviously though, it'll make things a lot more of a spectacle to hold. So, this particular contraption looks familiar, doesn't it? Although, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that this might actually be, let's just say, version 2 of Mecha Sonic right here, that is now going to be able to take control of the forms of these familiar contraptions from Sonic's past, ranging from, for instance, though, that particular boss fight, as we've already done with right there, is actually based off from the actual boss fight from Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1, although the noticeable differences this time is obviously those about the fact that, you know, Mecha Sonic is now going to be able to take control of that particular... You son of a... No wonder why I just somehow dive into this godforsaken bonus stage. Oh... Well, there goes all my rings, and it's even bad enough I can't turn into Supersonic after all. Oh, jeez. You seriously you have no idea why I just somehow did not like this bonus stage every nowadays, because... Not only because it's like a constant gamble, but it's also straight to the point though, is about the fact it just feels a bit annoyingly consistent. Whenever I keep on hitting, well, sometimes I get very lucky, whilst other times though, I get extremely unlucky, which as a result though, yeah, I just, anyway, let's just change the subject for this point right there. Also, taking notice from Hydro City Zone from Sonic 3, basically though, we can able to actually hop onto that. Oh shoot, I didn't grab these rings. I guess we have no choice but to deal with this boss fight without any rings. Well, nonetheless though, we can able to actually use an instant shield. So yeah, it won't be too hard. So, and there we go. And obviously that particular contraption looks familiar because it's almost inspired by Metropolis Zone from Sonic 2. Like, you have to deal with the forms of that particular, like, balloon inflatable variants of, those little, things itself. So, either way though, well, regardless of everything else though, luckily it's still 8 hits for the sake of each and every single boss fights. So, that's always that. So, but anyways though, also, about the fact that there's also another thing else is worth noting for, is about the fact that I'm pretty concerned about the fact that we might able to actually expect to realize that one of those games will be officially going to be releasing and during at some point until next year in 2025, and that's what appears to be the game called Sonic Wings Reunion. No, this is not a Sonic game, of course. It says Sonic Wings for the sake of one of those third-party games and stuff like that, which is like a flight simulation kind of game. And basically, though, is about the fact that that game is going to be releasing for the Nintendo Switch in Japan until May 29th in 2025. So, aside from Japan, it will support English, French, and or French, and German and Portuguese, Japanese, traditional Chinese, and simplified Chinese language options will be supported. And basically, that was about the fact that it does manage to able to say in the description right here, Sonic Wings Reunion marks the newest entry in the Aero Fighters Shoot 'em Up series. So, and this is the first new game in 26 years and some of the original developers are involved. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to say the least. So, either way. So that pretty much does it for Sky Century Zone, and now we're going to be approaching on to the last zone in the game, assuming, of course, if you don't get all the Chaos Emeralds. But, since then we still got every single Chaos Emerald in our hands, this is not technically the final zone just yet, but that'll be for later, after seeing that particular very long spiral segment right here. And now we ended up in the Death Egg Zone. So, yeah, unlike in Sonic 2, there's only like 2 bosses that we had to deal with. So, in this game right here, though, is that there's actually a full-length level. So, usually not only for Act 1, but as well as Act 2 as well. And I gotta say, though, while looking back on this zone, even to this day, I still really love listening to the actual background music of this particular level, which, as a result, though, it is seriously so darn good. So, oh, what the heck? I've no idea what's going on right there. I'm guessing that particular spring just somehow almost launched me back all the way to the beginning of the level. But I suppose it really doesn't matter. Oh, goodness. I forgot about a little spring placement right there. And hopefully, though, this... Oh, come on. Okay, let's just try to focus right now. Although, I'm really expecting about the fact that this level won't give me that much trouble, unlike the forms of in Sandopolis sometimes. Although, don't get me wrong though, I did manage to able to find nowadays with Sandopolis Zone a total cakewalk at this point in time, especially like I said this before, since on Tuesday, that the more I'm grown older, then I basically just somehow found Sandopolis not so much of an issue anymore. But that's just me, so... Also, using your electric shield will become useful, especially concerning for the fact that not only does it help you to able to actually skip some portions of the level, but also about the fact that if you dare touch the electricity stuff, it actually protects you from electric. So, pretty cool stuff, especially concerning for the fact that unlike in Hydro City Zone in Sonic 3, basically though, the bubble shield is only useful for you if you manage to able to get into underwater, which means you do have unlimited amount of air for the sake of the bombs in that particular... Well, you get the idea. So, anyways, let's just go ahead and, oh, darn it. Okay, let me just, I was expecting to try and get that. I wasn't hesitating. Oh, that was my fault. Especially, oh, wait a second. Oh, darn it. I have to go all the way back to the beginning of it. Okay. Note to self. Make sure you touch the checkpoint. Otherwise, it will just become a little bit more tricky for you, Knucklehead. I wasn't thinking straight, you know? Especially concerning for the fact that, well, obviously it's about the fact that we are almost nearly at the, you know, the halfway point in terms of the forms of November already, before we move on to the 12th and the final month in 2024, before we move on to the forms of a brand new year for 2025. So, I'm a little bit more optimistic for the sake of the forms of 2025, as a matter of fact, which obviously though, we'll still able to actually see some more Nintendo Switch games coming up soon, specifically though with Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, and on top of that with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Hopefully though, we're able to actually hear about the forms of more of that game, probably for the sake of the forms of the Game Awards. Well, we're not exactly 100% sure about this just yet, so hopefully due time though, so... And also, another thing else is worth noting for actually, it's also been 10 years ago since when that particular Tails voice actor by the forms of Colleen or Shalanencia, I think is what it says anyway. Again, I do apologize for that particular mispronunciation of that particular last name, so forgive me if I botched it. Because yes, she was actually really dang good voice for Tails, and she becomes a lot more stable these days, not only for the sake of the forms of other Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games kind of games, usually for instance though with Rio 2016 and Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, and on top of that with Sonic Forces and Team Sonic Racing, and also nowadays with Sonic X Shadow Generations. Specifically though in the Sonic Generations rewriting and stuff like that, and on top of all that stuff though with other stuff like this as well. And will you just cut that out with all this robotic stuff, please? Oh my god, I'm so sick of the forms of this godforsaken bonus. Oh, Jesus Louise, what is up with my luck? Anyway, I'm out of here. I've had enough of this particular junk. Oh well, I guess I'll take one ring any day. Oh my god. Okay, as I was saying, yeah, because basically though, that, the actor, as I mentioned this earlier, despite with this mispronunciation kind of thing, she did a really dang good job when it comes to voicing Tails for the majority of the Sonic Boom content, and even nowadays also with the forms of Sonic movies as well. Like, for instance, though, with Sonic Movie 2, and eventually Sonic 3 movie as well. And honorable mentions for the sake of the forms of short role for the likes of Knuckles the series. So, anyway though, and also relatively speaking, I was about the fact that I've noticed about the fact that there's gonna be a lot of like speculations of what the actual runtime is going to be like. For the sake of the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie, I think my guess it'll probably gonna be a mixture of both. Well, let's just say it was gonna be, well, it's hard for me to tell because it's gonna be one of those rumors and leaks again. So yeah, I won't be too surprised about that again. So anyways though, also speaking of something movie related though, not only did we somehow manage to able to receive some more news, all thanks to the forms of D23 in Brazil, that not only were we able to actually see our first look at the forms of the new image has been found for the sake of the forms of Zootopia 2, which it still looks really dang good to me though, especially not only does Nick looks exactly like the forms of how he does in the first film, and on top of that with Duty Hops was also very accurate, just like the forms of how it does in the first film. So yeah, I'm still really looking forward to Zootopia 2 for the sake of the forms of next year. And speaking of which though, it's about the fact that another one of those new movie news has been happened. Like, for instance though, we did somehow manage to able to receive the final trailer for the likes of Mufasa the Lion King, and relatively speaking though, not only does it show us the new final trailer for the film, but it's also about the fact that they've shown us a new poster for it, and I'm still not looking forward to it. I'm gonna say this for this point right about now, because relatively speaking now, I just seriously just cannot stand the forms of the Disney live-action movies anymore. They just gets pretty repetitive, and not to mention though, they pretty much overstay their welcome. I get it because of money business, but still, I mean, let's just change the subject. But either way, but that doesn't stop there, because it may look like, out of nowhere, Ice Age 6 has officially happened. And as a result though, the problem with this is, it's not really, I guess, the film itself, to be quite frank here, it's the existence of this. Like, why the heck does the actual film developers department want to be able to continue the involved series, Ice Age? I mean, I would classify with saying about the fact that the first 3 films are pretty good. Well, the 4th one is meh, and the 5th one is easily the worst ones in the entire thing. Well, aside from, you know, the Buck Wild one. Whilst that film only exists on Disney Plus, despite the fact that they received a lot of negativity with all its art style and everything back in 2022, not to mention though about the fact that with the absence of, you know, the most iconic comic relief Squirrel on that particular film, which appears to be Scrat, but I digress. But why would you able to continue with that series? Like, I'm not trying to be the forms of, you know, a Rio 3 kind of fanboy or anything else like that, because I would love to see the revival of the Rio franchises as far as I'm aware, because trust me what I'm saying is, it's been 10 years ago now, and I really do wish if Rio 3 will be a thing after all, but you choose the Ice Age and Ice Age films instead. I mean, I don't have any issues with it, but it's just about the fact that don't you think it's a bit too much for my liking? I mean, seriously though, it's the exact same situation as the forms of this unnecessary sequel situation as in Toy Story film franchise these days. And what's even more crazy than that Ice Age 6, despite the fact that it now exists anyway, it's about to be releasing, I'm not kidding, it's going to be releasing also in 2026. Yeah, alongside with the forms of Toy Story 5, and also the second Mario movie, which I'm really excited about because of the forms of not only for world building, but also introduce more characters in the next Mario movie coming up. But on top of that, also with the forms of Shrek 5, and also Spider-Man 4, and much more. So generally speaking, there's going to be a lot of competition for the sake of the forms of, well, let's just say I would have guessed about the fact that Ice Age 6 will be expected to be releasing during the forms of summer 2026, alongside with the forms of some other films as well, but we shall wait and see what happens in due time, especially concerning for the fact that I will admit it though right away, it's getting pretty ridiculous at this point, even for the sake of the forms of this unnecessary sequels with the forms of some other properties and stuff like that. So, I mean, I totally get it with the forms of Shrek 5, because obviously though, we have not seen anything related to Shrek, at least to be more specifically though, back in 2010, ever since in Forever After. So anyways though, and I highly doubt about the fact that I don't think it's possible for me to able to actually see Ice Age 6. Although, I'm curious to check it out if that comes out, but let's just hope about the fact that, well, I don't know what the subtitle is going to be, because unlike the forms of how it does it in the second film, it was actually subtitled The Meltdown, and in Ice Age 3, it is somehow subtitled Dawn of the Dinosaurs, and the fourth one was Confidential Drift, and of course the fifth one is going to be called Collusion Course, so we have no idea what the sixth one is going to be. Well, again, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I mean, I just found it a little bit unnecessary to me though, although I totally get about the fact that Blue Sky Studios is no longer exist anymore after the events of this particular, well, let's just say the whole bankruptcy kind of situation, you know, similar to the forms of how it does it for Alpha Dream, for the sake of the forms of the Mario Luigi games or something. Also, speaking of which though, it's about the fact that yes, indeed, I managed able to keep on playing Mario Luigi Brothership the other day, and I've realized about the fact that there is one particular problem I have with the game, not what appears to be the frame rate problems. Like, much like the forms of how it does it in, let's just say, Mario Luigi Dream Team Brothers, alongside with Paper Jam Brothers, and the 3DS remake of Bowser's Inside Story, plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey, the game will run at 30 FPS, or 30 frames per second. However though, there are a few rare occasional moments where the frame rate decides to able to go all over the place, like it just keeps on dipping most of the time, which, gee, no wonder why a lot of people out there will keep on speculating with the forms of the Nintendo Switch successor over and over and over again. But still, we still have to wait for it though, at least after the events of the March 2025 financial results for the Nintendo Switch sales. So, yeah, we're still gonna have to wait on that. So, also, speaking of which though, I also did somehow found out, for the sake of the forms of Sonic X Shadow Generations, specifically Shadow Generations though, mind you, I'm probably not going to spoil things too much, like I stated that before, but I did somehow manage to find out for one particular thing in mind, that it may look like new voices will be added for not only for Black Doom, but alongside with Mephiles the Dog. So, for instance though, Black Doom is now going to be voiced by Ben Dixon, I think is what it says anyway, and who's also by the forms of not only as number 1, 2, and that's about it basically, from the likes of Kids Next Door, that it was actually part of the show in Cartoon Network, for I've heard anyway, and he also did the forms of the one of those characters in Fire Emblem, which appears to be Casper and Lawrence, and along with any other games as well that I can probably think about on top of my head, along with the forms of anime roles as well, for likely the English dubbed versions of certain anime. So, and there's also worth noting for us that Mephiles is now being voiced as Robbie Daynard, who you may know from the likes of not only from many anime, but as well as the forms of video game roles as well, like Herbert from Fire Emblem, but also Pinstrap from Crash Bandicoot. Okay, that's actually interesting, especially concerning for the fact that I was assuming about the fact that Roger Craig Smith is going to be voicing Mephiles, but I guess they were wrong, at least back in Journey Bombs around a couple of days ago, generally speaking. So, and also I do apologize for that background noise you'll be hearing, because obviously though, once again, Wario and Waluigi are doing all kinds of stuff in the Journey Bombs in the bathroom at this point. So either way though, that's just the way how Wario actually plays out to be. but I digress. So here we go with this next boss fight right here. Now, normally though, back then, that we were supposed to be able to let these little things decide to be able to actually attack this thing that is usually hovering around in the entire arena. Well, actually, there was actually a trick to this that I somehow discovered just recently, is that you can able to miraculously manage to able to let them go into the upside down mode, and then if you try to spin dash into it, you can able to actually just try to able to reflect that thing back at this little thing right there. Well, mind you, if you try to jump onto it, it actually protects itself thanks to the Fonzler shield. So, but yeah, that's actually a pretty useful tip right there, especially we don't have to worry about the Fonzler's particular time bonus situation, or in some cases though, we don't want to let the time run out. So, yeah, that's actually pretty swell from that particular technique I just did. Whilst unlike the Fonzler how it does it back in 2017, like, supposedly though, Sonic did somehow did that game, where basically though, he did not know that particular trick existence, although mind you about the fact that it did manage to able to take place in 2017, mind you, so that's roughly about 7 years ago, and meanwhile, that Sonic also did done the Sonic Origins version of that particular game as well, and he doesn't know about that particular trick either, which did happen since about a year ago, so... But yeah, that's as far as we can able to actually point things out for the sake of time. I mean, generally speaking, I've got no words to say. That I totally get it about the fact that now that Ice Age 6 has now become reality. Although it's actually in production for right now, but I do know for the fact that there are a lot of fans out there seems to get a little bit more ticked up at this point, for this point in time, especially concerning for the fact that I know it's kind of unnecessary, but still, we'll just have to stick around with it, I guess, unfortunately. Let's just hope about the fact that the graphic style will not be as horrendous as the Fonzler Buck Wild one, because, well, straight to the point though, it's a good thing I somehow skipped over that particular film on Disney Plus, because I've heard a lot of negative things about it though, ranging from its visual presentation and also the lack of the comic relief, Scratch Squirrel, and you probably name the rest. So anyways though, so let's go and try to deal with... Oh goodness gracious, that was a close one. So yeah, we have to jump over that laser once this starts flashing, and jump over for that flamethrower right here coming on from this little you know, this nose. So anyway though, darn it, there goes my electric shield, but that's okay though, because we turn into Supersonic at one point, and exponentially though, that pretty much does it, right? Well, we've got the last thing we want to take care of before we take on the final boss that is locked in for the sake of Supersonic transformation only. So yeah, just keep on hitting Eggman right here while he carries away with the Master Emerald and stuff like that. However, if you dare fall off, you have to restart the entire fight again. So, anyways though, just keep on doing more hits on him though, and luckily though, if you keep on jumping at one point or another, then you can easily catch up to him. So, there we go. The Death Egg Zone is completely done, but now we're going to begin on to the true final zone in Sonic & Knuckles. Plus, with the forms of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, if you manage to combine those two games together, except rather than becoming Hypersonic, so instead we get able to turn into Supersonic right here. So, yeah, basically though, you have to keep on collecting rings. It is actually the first ever Sonic game that it does manage to feature the true final boss that Supersonic is required, which will become stable in the future Sonic games, ranging from, let's just say, Sonic Pocket Adventure, Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, and Sonic Advance, Sonic Advance 2, Sonic Advance 3, Sonic Rush Adventure, Sonic Colors on the DS, and much, much more. So generally speaking, all you have to really do in this particular first phase of a fight right here, we need to dodge not only a lot of rocks, or meteor rocks I should say, but as well as that though, we also have to dodge those missiles coming from the actual specific robot as well it keeps shooting us off screen. And generally speaking, once you make it to this point right here, well, basically though, we now need to deal with the amount of damage to this particular robot. So, yeah, you have to guide those missiles right onto its weak spot, which appears to be its silver head, so that actually signifies that counts as a hit. So, and yeah, nothing else I can really say about this boss fight basically though. I mean, seriously, the music, it sounds super duper good. And I believe once your ring counter decides able to deplete at some point or another, when it gets to like 10 or lower, I believe the music will start to speed up. So yeah, I just want to classify that. And if you think this boss battle is done, well, we've got one more thing to do, and that is, of course, try to keep on dashing straight towards that particular, another kind of robot. So, in some cases, though, yeah, that particular familiar defect kind of robot right here, and basically just keep on ramming at him for about a few times, and then you don't have to necessarily try to worry about just keep on slowing down, although you still need to collect some more rings if you're almost running out of rings. So, but either way, that's pretty much about it, basically. Although, mind you, it's kind of unfortunate about the fact I did die once so far during the forms of Sonic & Knuckles playthrough, but that's just mainly because of the forms of the lack of hesitation and stuff like that. Although, on the plus side is, though, unlike in Sonic Origins, though, in one of those sections in Defect Zone Act 2, that thankfully, though, Sonic doesn't go... Well, usually that Sonic keeps on dying most of the time in Act 2 in Defect Zone, but that's not the case here. And, oh, there's Tails right there. So, yeah, Tails only appears in the ending in Sonic & Knuckles standalone version. So, kind of weird, honestly. But regardless of such, though, we somehow claimed the Master Emerald, and we now need to return back into its floating island, or specifically Angel Island of any sort, and we're able to deliver this back to Knuckles, and potentially speaking of, Angel Island will be fully restored, right? Well... let's face it though, if you're trying to play the game in Sonic & Knuckles standalone version, well, that's not to say about the fact that the entire ending is not going to be based off from the true ending from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because relatively speaking, I don't think it's possible we can able to actually see the ending cutscene where Sonic and Tails just somehow flies by, and you're able to see Knuckles saying about the fact that thank you and all that stuff. So I don't think we can able to see that scene this time around. So, but at the very least though, we can able to hear this familiar credits theme, so that's always something. So, but of course, what you expected, the entire Let's Play of this game is not exactly done yet, because obviously though, like I stated before, until next week though, we can pretty much guaranteed able to move on to the second playthrough, which as a result, we're not going to be playing as the Red Echidna, or an Echidna warrior such as myself. So either way, yeah, regardless of everything else though, I still had a lot of fun playing this game, but I'm probably not going to get into my final thoughts of this particular standalone version of Sonic & Knuckles just yet, because, well, let's face it though, it's about the fact that we've already done, technically, the first half of the entire package already, specifically Sonic & Knuckles standalone version. So anyways though, and it's also worth noting for as well is about the fact that, still, I found it incredibly odd about the fact that, well, as far as what I think, that some Toy Sales has already mentioned about this before, that, yeah, it may look like the uploading schedules in 2024 when it comes to Let's Plays department, it just feels all over the place, you know. But let's just hope about the fact that 2025 will get back into its normal routine, and this time around though with some changes. But then again though, we'll let Maxie mention more about it by the end of 2024, basically. So anyways though, I suppose there's also another thing I want to talk about, and that's what it appears to be for the fact that obviously though, another one of those films is going to be releasing on this Paramount Plus, I should say. That particular film is going to be called Dear Santa, which not only does it feature Keegan Michael Key, that he was also voiced Toad from the Super Mario Bros. Movie, but also with Jack Black, who was also voiced Bowser from the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So yeah, we pretty much recognize those actors at this point after seeing, you know, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and it may look like that particular film, Dear Santa, is expected to be releasing on Paramount Plus until specifically in November 25th. So that's going to be about, well, let's just say it's going to be on, I don't know, actually, because mind you, I haven't exactly got my calendar up for the sake of time, but my guess, it will probably should be coming until, specifically, though, until, Tuesday or something like that. Well, I may be wrong, but either way. So yeah, nothing else I can really say about that, I guess. I mean, I've already explained quite a few bits here and there. I mean, it's just about the fact that no matter what, though, it's about the fact I can't even believe time flies, that, you know, the Booster Course Pass has officially ended for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and stuff like that. So, anyways, though, so that pretty much does it for Sonic's story in Sonic & Knuckles. So with that being said, folks, is that we get endings off this point right here. Oh, gee, the Egg Robo is up to no good, huh? So anyways, join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic & Knuckles standalone version. It's that we're going on to the Knuckles' story now. So yeah, this will be interesting to say the least. So I'll see you guys until next Tuesday. Later, fellas.